My favorite moment from the Super Bowl was, oh, sorry, I've just been informed that this is the Grammy show, so we're talking about Grammy speeches today. I promise I'm not on my phone, at least on the air. Revivals aren't just for curb appeal or to keep the art alive. Thanks, Timothy. So let's talk about my regrettable phone usage. Spoiler alert, it's not good. First and foremost, may I reintroduce Bad Bunny. The first up is Jonathan Groff. Now, I know there are two types of fans jumping for joy out of their seats. Please sit down. I'm not talking about Hamilton or Glee. People recognize and remember that effort, the framing, how for those few seconds they look larger than life, because with the right mind, cameras can show more than any two eyes could imagine. But use your time intentionally. The next time you wonder where all that time you thought you had went, remember that the world isn't spinning any faster. We may just be getting sucked in and slowed down. Because music is free speech and free expression all the way. As Billy Joel said, we didn't start the fire. It was always burning since the world's been turning. Reporting for Razorback Reels, reporting for Razorback Reels, reporting for Razorback Reels, I'm Josh Droll. I promise I'm not on my phone, at least on the air, but this guy is at the center of what we're talking about today. That is the digital war for your attention. Additionally, we'll also discuss some of the effects that war has on our generation, backed by research. So to start, let's discuss the why. Why is your attention important online? Creators on social media platforms get paid by a certain number of views, and that view is literally money in their pockets. Everything, including simply rewatching a video, is a chance for somebody's brand to grow. In an ideal world, somebody stays on their phone and keeps engaging. So let's talk about my regrettable phone usage. Spoiler alert, it's not good. I'm a journalist, so I'm always looking for a new story, and I also tend to get sucked into an endless chain of sending my friends Instagram Reels. Starting Sunday and ending last night, I used my phone for 19 hours over those 2 days. Let's keep that number in mind. We'll come back to that. What I really want to talk about, though, is social media. Meta and its subsidiaries, Facebook and Instagram, have been under mounting legal pressure for years because of the proposed harm these sites pose to younger generations, namely Generation Z and Alpha. Social media has largely dodged liability for mental harm in the past because of Section 230 in the Communications Decency Act, which claims these platforms cannot be held liable for what other users post. Enter the civil suit KGM v. Meta. Last week, a Los Angeles court sided with a 20-year-old woman who went by her initials, KGM, and found YouTube and Meta harmed her mental state with addictive features. This is a big deal. Alongside a separate case, the New Mexico Supreme Court, a day prior, these are the first two cases where the courts actually find these social media platforms liable for degrading the mental health of teenagers and young adults because of their addictive nature. Ultimately, Google and Meta just got out with a slap on the wrist, paying a combined $6 million to the plaintiff. But it's the first step on a long road. I've thrown around the term mental harm to describe the effects of social media. So what mental harm are younger generations facing exactly? Gloria Mark received a PhD in psychology from Columbia University and released a study with the American Psychological Association in 2023. To start, Mark says we're more stressed out and have lost the ability to concentrate for an extended period of time because of short-form video content like Reels and TikToks. These videos have severely affected the average attention span. In 2004, that average was 2.5 minutes. Now, if you can't get your point across in 40 seconds, you've lost the majority of people. And it's because of the rise of endless short-form video content, or doom scrolling. Would you say that social media has helped you multitask? Have you also felt more stressed recently? Well, Mark says that isn't just in your head. In fact, she says the two might be a cause and effect. The faster one's attention switches from one thing to the next, the higher their cortisol, or stress levels. So remember I told you to remember my personal phone usage number, 19 hours over 2 days. Over half of those hours were on social media apps alone. And this is where I pose my main question. How much time is wasted on these apps? So I spend an average of 8 hours a day, every single day, until I'm 100 years old. That's 214,000 hours of screen time. In other words, I'm on track to spend a third of my life on my phone. That's not counting sleep, which is another third. And that's not counting any other screen like a TV or a console, just this thing. And here's what I'm saying. Social media in and of itself is not a bad thing. It's helped me greatly in my major, and I love seeing what my friends are up to. But it's designed to be intentionally addictive and keep you on the app because in the end, your view means money, exposure, and a boost for somebody else's brand. And I know that's rich coming from somebody who's speaking to you from both Facebook and YouTube. And I'm not saying to quit social media altogether, but use your time intentionally. The next time you wonder where all that time you thought you had went, remember that the world isn't spinning any faster. we may just be getting sucked in and slowed down. Reporting for Razorback Reels, I'm Josh Droll. Bet you didn't expect to see me here again. Sorry for the fake send-off, but today I'm here recapping my favorite pop culture moments of 2025. Now, was the assignment to find the all-time pop culture trends? Yes. The answer is fine. Next slide. Starting in Cousins, number 3 has got to be The Summer I Turned Pretty. Now, I've watched a few of these cheeky, sometimes bordering on too cheesy shows. Every time I start them, someone drags me into them kicking and screaming. 2 episodes in, I claim I hate it and I'll never watch it again. And then a month later, I finish the series. This Amazon original features the love triangle between 2 brothers and their childhood friend nicknamed Belly. To start, I have some strong questions for the writer of this show. Why is there a love triangle including family members taking place in a town called Cousins? And why is Lola Tung's character nicknamed Belly? Like, who did that to her? And why is Steven the way that he is? Because that's the TV-friendly way to say that. Overall, I rank this one third because in places the writing is just bad. But I am a sucker for these type of shows, one of many apparently. And overall, it was a fun show to watch to bring me back through the summer to the fall. Panning up to number 2, we have the Coldplay affair scandal. You all probably saw this image once or twice if you were on the internet at all over the summer. Even if you didn't see this one, perhaps you saw all of the marketing teams immediately mimic this to sell their products. But it was a very bad day for those two. That's Astronomer CEO Andy Byron and an executive for the HR of the company, Kristen Cabot. The jokes write themselves. And yes, they were married, just not to each other. This moment and the whole internet debating whether it was morally right to have this moment be used as another trend in the 2025 machine. Some saying this matter ended their careers, while others say they were caught in public, literally in 4K. So if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. But regardless of what side of the argument you side with, these 2 undestined lovebirds will forever live in infamy in 2025. And last but certainly not least, and I'm sorry in advance to my station manager who skipped out, we have 6-7. Okay, look, I know it's dumb. It doesn't have a meaning, literally. Merriam-Webster says it right here. But that's kind of the point of the phrase. Originally, the way that most people came across this phrase was in the lyrics to a rap song. Eventually, it found its way into videos that went viral, and let me tell you, pattern recognition is a powerful thing. So powerful it even penetrated this newsroom. I don't even know if I could tell you how many times 6-7 was used in this news studio, but it was enough to get us in trouble. Again, I love committing to the bit, and anyone will tell you I'm serious about it. I mean, I got 6-7 banned at my office job. But let's not pretend as if any of us hated it when it first came out. It's fun, it's stupid, and it's harmless. Like I said, it literally has no known meaning. And it is by far the most memorable trend of 2025. And that wraps up my top trends for last year. I said it last week, but I mean it for real this time. Reporting for Razorback Reels, one last time, I'm Josh Droll.
Josh, you should have given us your top 6 or 7 picks. Well, thank you, Josh.
There's a lot of talk about the new stars on Broadway. Bob the drag queen is now in Moulin Rouge. 3 big names from FX's The Bear are now headed to their own respective Broadway plays. But does it always have to be out with the old and in with the new? Today we're talking about revivals, not with plays or bands, but with the actors themselves. Faces from the past that are still out there making Broadway shine, like the stars they are. The first up is Jonathan Groff. Now I know there are 2 types of fans jumping for joy out of their seats. Please sit down. I'm not talking about Hamilton or Glee. Okay, maybe I could talk a little about Hamilton. This is where most people recognize Groff from, during his days as King George III in Hamilton, adorned in very royal gear and singing about his love for colonization. Now he's returned after nearly 10 years since his departure from Hamilton, and just in time, as the lead man in a jukebox biopic about Bobby Darin. The role reflects the life of a popular but deeply troubled singer. But there is a moment in the show where Groff speaks out to the crowd as himself. He makes it a point to look each audience member in the eyes and make it special, a skill he was not always so willing to employ as a shyer, younger version of himself. And fellow Hamilton co-star Leslie Odom Jr. is also back on the main stage, where he will reprise his role as Aaron Burr on the West End in July of this year. 10 years ago, he played this same role in Richard Rodgers Theater in New York, winning a Tony and a Grammy in his final years as the frenemy to Alexander Hamilton, played by Lin-Manuel Miranda. Following his departure from the show in 2016, he pursued a very different career, getting some director credits and even producing a few of his own songs as a solo artist. And now he's back to charm the audiences for a shorter time in London. So what exactly is new about these returns? To put this into perspective, Jonathan Groff is now 40 years old, and Leslie Odom Jr. is 44. A lot has changed since they last stepped onto the stage, which means new fuel for their characters. And just in time, Groff briefly steps out of character, speaking not as Bobby Darin, but as himself. He absolutely blasphemes his younger teens and talks openly with an audience about his experience coming out as gay, and then seamlessly switches back into character, someone who is the antithesis of himself. As for Leslie Odom Jr., his return means getting another shot at the role after 10 years of being away. How does one go back to a role they haven't touched in 10 years? Can it even be the same? Revivals aren't just for curb appeal or to keep the art alive. Thanks, Timothy. They are also the clearest mirror the world has. Aaron Burr, the character, was never the bubbliest, but how does Odom Jr. carry resentment through Burr now as opposed to then? Why is Goff inserting himself and breaking the narration of a very angry artist? The short answer, they're people, and they change, just like the world does. The role of today shouldn't copy the choices of yesterday because they risk falling flat. The best actors change it up and keep telling the same story in countless different ways. They tell us how our society is perceived. Reporting for Razorback Reels, I'm Josh Droll. The Olympics are in full swing, and there's a lot for the U.S. in particular to be talking about. U.S. hockey beats Canada in thrilling overtime fashion to Alyssa Liu doing Alyssa Liu things. However, a smaller segment in the Olympics is centered around this man, the videographer. Videography is the ultimate balancing tool on any screen, and when done right, is an art form in and of itself. But back to this guy. Who is he? This is Jordan Cohen, a former competitive ice skater from Los Angeles. He retired for competitive skating in 2014, and now, all of a sudden, he's ice skating on the largest stage in the world in 2026 as the camera guy. So, how did we get here? Well, cameras are stationed all around the ice rink to capture every moment of a performer's routine. But just like the cameras, the viewer is stuck on the outside looking in. Enter Cohen. With his knowledge and skills in ice skating, he glides around the rink and follows the performer, taking him with us on his homemade gimbal. Yes, he made that thing himself. And not only does he get the audience to skate alongside Olympic athletes, they also get to know how the athlete feels in the seconds between striking that final pose and exiting the rink, which is new territory for the entire broadcast world. In short, there is a stark difference from this shot to this one. And you don't need to pay thousands of dollars to get these seats, just find a place with a screen. And it's not exclusive to sports either. Good camera work elevates works everywhere, like in my top film of 2025, Sinners. Specifically, it's the ancestor shot from I Lied to You, where time warps and mixes in a one-shot masterclass, as each pan moves to a different age, era, and sound. Words on a page fail to convey that same feeling, and neither would a live stage. Viewers get impressed and see, hear, and feel centuries of culture actualized in the span of just a few minutes. There are a multitude of other reasons this shot in particular deserves its flowers, but we would be here all night just to name them all. But here's my point. Videography does not care who has front row seats or back row seats. It doesn't care who's in the room where it happens or if they're just in a room. Everyone gets the same shot. And when the world stops caring about the regular shot or the premium shot, that allows creativity to spread to every mind, not just those who can afford the cost of admission. I would be remiss to not mention our final subject, Andor. This one is kind of cheating, as the Star Wars universe has continually been one of the best in videographic storytelling, like this shot in Season 2 of Andor. Without words, what do you gain from this shot? The height implies a power dynamic, but this shot hints that they are equal but opposite forces, and the window is a wonderful medium to visualize that power struggle between these two characters. And I hate to tell you this, but this wouldn't be the first time Star Wars has used this shot either. The reason Star Wars remains so good at cinematic storytelling is because they believe that not all shots are created equal. Every shot has its own intention and a story to tell. And when everybody gets to see the moments after a gold medal performance from inches away, or bumping shoulders during an otherwise impossible time travel masquerade, or sitting courtside during a fiery standoff for the future of the Republic, people recognize and remember that effort. The framing, how for those few seconds they look larger than life, because with the right mind, cameras can show more than any two eyes could imagine. Reporting for Razorback Reels, I'm Josh Droll. My favorite moment from the Super Bowl was... Oh, sorry, I've just been informed that this is the Grammy show, so we're talking about Grammy speeches today. This year's Grammys got a lot of attention for reasons having less to do with music and more to do with politics. And you'd like to believe that those two are completely separate, but are they really? We'll get into that intersection of music and politics, but first, let's meet our speakers. First and foremost, may I reintroduce Bad Bunny. The Puerto Rican singer, songwriter, actor, performer had a huge 2025, and it's hard to find a part of pop culture where Bad Bunny didn't have some sort of influence. At this year's Grammys, he won 3 awards: the highly touted Album of the Year for his work in Debí Tirar Más Fotos, alongside Best Música Urbana Album, and Best Global Musical Performance for his song EOO. Kicking it off with Bad Bunny's acceptance speech, we hit our major theme of the night: immigration. So why immigration? If we're talking about immigration in America, it is certainly almost tied to Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. The government task force is currently under public scrutiny for its conduct during raids, which are connected to the injuries and deaths of not only immigrants, but American citizens as well. In a world divided by immigrants and citizens, Bad Bunny's stance is very clear. He starts his speech by saying "Ice out" and then moves on to talk about the power of love. He speaks of love for his home, Puerto Rico. It's only just now finishing rebuilding from hurricanes that ravaged the territory almost a decade ago. Bad Bunny declared on stage that they are not savages, nor animals, nor aliens, but people and Americans. For those of you who watch the Super Bowl show, this quote behind me should look very, very familiar. Other artists took a more direct approach, though. Yeah, this one kind of speaks for itself. That is, of course, Billie Eilish and her brother Phineas taking home Song of the Year for her song Wildflower, which was re-released as a single in 2025 from the hit album Hit Me Hard and Soft. Olivia Dean talked about her status as the granddaughter of an immigrant and spoke about it from a place of pride and as a thing to be celebrated, among other things like winning Best New Artist. You know, also kind of cool. There are a couple of honorable mentions here as well. Lei Fei took home the Best Traditional Pop Vocal Album for her album A Matter of Time and highlighted how important art education was for her career. Lady Gaga won both Best Pop Vocal Album and Best Dance Pop Recording and, almost as a reminder to herself, talked about how important it is to fight for yourself as a producer in the room. Now we arrive at the big question. Why are music and politics so intertwined? Because music is inherently political and a product of its time. Think of Green Day's American Idiot changing the lyrics to "I'm not a part of the MAGA agenda," or Rage Against the Machine going on live TV just to be kicked off for swearing. This anti-MAGA movement would not have made sense 5 years ago or 5 years in the future. It makes sense now. It is a product of its time. The same applies to Rage Against the Machine and the grunge movement in the 80s and 90s. It's targeted to a person or a movement. As long as there is still injustice in the world, music will always be there to counteract it. Because music is free speech and free expression all the way. As Billy Joel said, "We didn't start the fire. It was always burning since the world's been turning." Reporting for Razorback Reels, I'm Josh Droll.